Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Civil Rights Agenda, LGBTQ issues. Geez, I didn't think I'd ever mess that up. The show is brought to you by, show is brought to you, there we go, that's what I want. This show is brought to you by the Civil Rights Agenda, located 2129 Northwestern Avenue in Chicago. And as you see at the bottom of your screen, there is a phone number, 312-738-1060. We invite you to call with any questions whatsoever. Our guest today is Dr. Deb Wilkie. Thank you, Deb, for coming on.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Thanks for having me.
Dr. Wilkie is a very well-known therapist in the area who works a lot with the transgender and LGBT community. She does a lot of speaking. She also does a lot of committee work, education, and she works with a lot of transgenders on an individual basis. So she is here today, and we're going to talk about some LGBT issues, and primarily trans issues. And we invite anybody out there with any questions that you want to ask, please call us at 312-738-1060. And I think we'll start by allowing Deb to kind of tell us, because I think that, we have a lot of non-transgender people that do watch the show, okay? And for those that aren't transgender or don't know anybody that is, and for the transgenders as well that don't have some of the answers. The biggest question for any transgender to answer is when somebody says, why? Why are you like that? Why are you blah, blah, blah. So I'm going to ask you to kind of tell everybody out there kind of what it's all about.
Well, something that's always struck me as so incredibly odd is when someone has the notion that a person makes a decision to be transgender. Nothing could be further from the truth. There is so very much social authorization, so much physical pain, so much sense of loss, actual loss, so much tremendous expense involved in any kind of gender transition. And even if there's no physical gender transition, just setting oneself apart, or society forces it upon an individual because they are different. The cost to the soul is just so enormous that no one in their right mind would make a decision.
The consequences are extremely great.
Oh, they are indeed. And so my job when I'm either teaching at the college or teaching in seminars or medical students about how to treat transgender patients, or when I go to hospitals about how to treat trans patients on the units or whatever it might be, is to help them understand this is actually genetically encoded. This is part of a DNA situation. And a lot of people are put off by that notion, and I think one of the reasons they are is because we are a society, and probably not alone in this either around the globe, but definitely in our society, we love to blame the patient. That way we don't have to assume any responsibility for accepting people simply for who they are.
We have a terrible time in our country relying on somebody else, because so many people have been programmed either through religion or through the way they're brought up, et cetera, that they doubt anything somebody says And like you say, if I come to you and you say, well, why do you feel you're transgender? And I say, I was born that way. They can't understand it,
Right,
you know?
right.
But
And you know, to be fair, one of the reasons most people can't understand it is because most people aren't born feeling that way.
mhm,
You know, a baby is born and assigned a sex based on what's between the legs.
mhm,
But gender is different than sexual anatomy. It's based on a felt sense of knowing one's self, and that happens between the ears.
mhm.
That is a brain chemistry announcement to the self of this is who I am, and it truly it comes to the individual as much a surprise to themselves as it does to anybody outside of themselves.
So the brain is in conflict with the physiological makeup, which makes it even more difficult for the transgender themselves to understand because they're confused.
They are, you know, and when I first started my practice almost 20 years ago, I was working primarily with male to female transgender or transsexual persons between the ages of about 40 to 75 years of age. And now, almost 20 years later, I'm working with primarily female to male, 11 to 16 years of age.
Okay.
And regardless of which age group we're talking about or what era, because 20 years is kind of a spread, people walk in with that felt sense of knowing who they are, but also that equal confusion, like what happened? Like
Why
do I feel this way?
Right.
You know? Yeah.
Let me ask you a quick question here. Because you've been on some of my other shows, and I mean, we've talked about all of this, and you said there has been a somewhat of a change in the types of patients you're seeing. Okay. Do you think, because it seems like male to female seems to get more attention by the public than female to male. And is that because that we are less likely to be harder on females doing or being able to do what they want than we are with males showing a difference?
Well, I think there are two reasons that this happens.
Okay.
In terms of the scientific community, just basic research that's done, there has always been a preference on studying males. So if you look at the body of research that we have to date, whether it's about homosexuality, transsexuality, whatever it might be, you're typically going to find that the body of research tends to focus upon the male population, and that the studies on female population kind of lags behind. Like, okay, well, yeah, we'll study women. We'll get around to that later. So in terms of research, that's that issue. But in terms of why do we treat the actual persons of male to female differently than female to male, I think it's because of the obvious double standard. Just like I'm sitting here next to you wearing slacks, right? Okay, I can walk out of here and not have anybody glance at me twice for wearing slacks. But, you know, if a fella is walking down the sidewalk wearing slacks, you better, or you know, I'm sorry, dress or a skirt, I'm sorry, thank you. You know, it's like he damn well better be Scottish wearing a kilt. Because Because it's not okay, it's not cool
it's
for a
not
guy to be.
acceptable, right.
Right, there is that double standard. And I really think that female to male transitioning happens for a couple reasons. Because they can slide under the radar and change so quickly and change so, I don't know, unnoticed.
Yeah, it's under the radar.
Yeah, very much so, you know, like a stealth B-20 bomber, like nobody sees it happening. And the fact that if that individual is taking testosterone, doing injections into their legs or buttocks, whatever, every 7 days, within 6 months, their voice has dropped down through the basement floor, you know, I mean, just, it
Okay.
happens so fast, and within a year, they've got some kind of beard going on. And people, just general public, will gender a person within the first 5 seconds of meeting them based upon their face and their voice. And so female to male, boom, like that, they've transitioned.
And I understand, especially in it's inevitable. It's like when I'm on the phone, 99 out of 100 times, somebody's going to say, "Can I help you, sir?" You know, because I haven't gone through the voice lessons or whatever to raise my voice, other than when I'm yelling at somebody. But anyway.
Yeah, I know how that one goes.
But no, I mean, you're right. It's male to female is more obvious than female. I mean, just in fashion alone, women can wear whatever they want, and nobody's going to second guess. You know.
Right.
Yeah. But if I went to a state dinner in a nice, you know, gown or something, you know, people are, wait a minute. You know?
Right.
Who is this and where did she come from?
Right.
Or he, or she, what should I call you?
Right,
You know?
right, because, you know, even if you were gender transitioning and you're taking estrogen or estradiol, that is such a lightweight neurohormone as compared to testosterone. It's not going to change your voice. It's not going to remove your 5 o'clock shadow.
Exactly.
It's not going to make you shorter. You know what I mean? Just, there's so many physical changes that won't happen as a result of that medication.
Right.
So if you're wearing a beautiful gown, you're still tall, you're still hairy, you still have a deep voice, whatever. So there are so many markers, so many clues.
Well, just the bone structure and the width of the
Sure.
shoulders and everything.
Exactly.
You know, I mean, and for us that have the doggone thing sticking out of the throat, it's even a bigger.
Right, right. And to show you how ignorant I am, when I first started the practice 20 years ago, my second trans client to come in was crying and saying to me, "It's just, I feel so terrible about this thing sticking out of my throat." And I was like, I'm studying the throat, and I'm like, "What's sticking out of your throat?"
Make sure you even look
And-
closer. Yeah.
What are we talking about?
Let me get my binocular.
Yeah. And the client says, "You know, my Adam's apple," and I swear to you on my life, I'd never heard of it before. And I was like, what is an Adam's apple? The client thought I was like part nuts, part liar.
Yeah. What medical
Every-
school did you go to?
Well, yeah, right. Hadn't been yet, so I didn't
Wow.
know. Yeah.
No, but yeah, and I find myself doing that sometimes, quite frankly, is you have somebody that looks, I mean, really, really nice and so on and so forth. And you say, well, I wonder if I can tell. I'll look down at the throat. And believe it or not, there are a lot of men that really don't have that pronounced.
That's true. Same thing with the brow ridge, you know. You, case in point, right?
Mhm.
You don't have the brow ridge.
Right.
That is really pretty standard for a lot of males. You don't have that. Just
Well,
saying.
that reminds me of a story. I went to I went to the VA this a couple of months ago or so, maybe longer, but anyway, they wanted to do an ultrasound on my thyroid, okay, because they thought maybe that was giving me some symptoms that I had been complaining about. So this lady comes in and she does it, you know, and she puts all the gel on there and she starts with it. She says, "Wow," she says, "that's amazing." And I said, "What's amazing?" She says, "You have," and she knew I was a male to female trans, and she says, "Well, you have a female thyroid." And I said, "What?" And she says, "Well, there isn't much difference between a male and a female." She says, "But yours is awfully small."
See?
So I was like, okay, that's one thing in my favor.
Right. Hopefully the world will notice it.
Yeah. Can we put a little window there or something? So
Magnifying.
See, yeah, my thyroid says.
Yeah, right. You wanted proof? There it is.
But yeah, it makes it a lot more difficult and those are things people just can't understand, and it's a shame. How do we get people to understand that we, or I, am no different than anybody else? In fact, last Tuesday, I was nominated for Vice Commander in my American Legion post.
Oh, congratulations.
So now I'm president of a NOW group, Vice Commander American Legion, a Girl Scout leader. I mean, like, it's, how am I any different than the next person that just, you know, is doing these kinds of things? And to get it across to people that, you know, no, there is no prerequisite, I guess you'd say, as being a sissy because you're transgender, or being somebody that's totally different from what they were. And they really aren't. Because
Well, I want to know, first of all, what do you do in your spare time? But apart from that, to say, how do I get people to understand that I'm no different than they are? That the answer is yes and no. Yes, you have differences from them,
Sure.
but they also have differences from you.
exactly.
You know, this notion that, okay, there's the trans community and then there's the cisgender thing, which, by the way, is a misnomer. The notion that people are just one gender, you know, just male or just female, and then there's the trans folk. Or the gender variant. The reality is, the children who come in to see me nowadays, especially the little ones, they've nailed it. When they come in, the buzzword right now is non-binary.
That's a good one, too.
And you know what? They are absolutely accurate. Because this whole notion that we're 100% male or 100% female is BS. Because you and I both have estrogen just naturally, even if you took no hormones. You and I both have testosterone. You and I both have progesterone, gonadotropins, etc. We have the same setup for sex hormones, just in different values. And so, you know, this idea that people, you know, Johnny's all boy, you know, you've heard that expression before. Oh yeah, Johnny, he's all boy, which I guess means, yay, he's a football player and he likes fire trucks or whatever that means. I don't know.
You hear from the other side, you know, oh yeah, Lily is all girl, a good, all American girl, all American boy.
Yeah.
So is Oscar Mayer Wiener's all American, but they're probably different too.
Well, he drives a wiener truck, so I mean, he's a little different. And Donald Trump is all American too, so we don't want to go there.
God.
But,
Yeah.
no, I mean, just do the math on it. If we all have within us what Carl Jung called the animan animus, which is the female and the male spirits of both, not just spirit, but actual chemistry, then how different can we really be? I think it comes down to like secondary sex characteristics about the ductless glands of the endocrine system that has the pituitary gland telling the body at puberty what to do. And it starts to release certain hormones so that either breasts grow or they don't, or hair grows on the face or it doesn't, and so forth. So that certain changes take place at a certain time in life, or they don't. Okay, so those things are fairly predictable, but even so, then what do you do with the situation where you have somebody with ambiguous genitalia, the intersex population? Do they not matter? Do they fall into a category of, I'm confused and I don't care about them? I think they hold many answers for us, actually.
Yeah.
They teach us to accept the fact that there is really more to be seen here, more to understand than just Johnny and Susie.
Exactly. But what most people can't see is that, okay, what makes me different from Johnny? Okay? Johnny's a big, rough dude that I'm probably more sensitive. He probably is not. Okay? But does that make me any less of a person than him? No, it doesn't. But people can't think that deeply sometimes, I don't think.
Yeah, and as for the issue of sensitivity, Johnny could actually be a much more sensitive human being than even you. It's just that we're not privy to it. You know, perhaps he comes home at night and cries because he can't let his truer self be known at school or even within the context of his family.
Sure. Yeah, he's been brought up to say, men don't cry.
Right.
You don't dare cry.
Right.
If you cry, you're going to be struck with lightning. And then see how much you cry. But
yeah, exactly. You know, it could be that he has cried on too many occasions and his father has really given him what for about it and in fact bullied him, hurt him to the point where now Johnny goes out and hurts other people because he's been so hurt.
he thinks this is norm now. Yeah, this is a norm. Okay, if I want to establish my dominance, then I got to show it.
Yeah.
And I can no longer say, well, leave me alone, or something like that.
Right, and we know that the bullied become the bullies.
True.
And so then there's no room for sensitivity, no room for empathy. I mean, are you not struck by the lack of empathy today? From the White House all the way on down?
Oh, absolutely. I was driving on the expressway yesterday, it's some time ago, and I got to thinking, we have a sad lack. We got to cut it short here pretty quickly, but we have a sad lack of. I can't think of the word now. It starts with C.
Compassion?
Compassion. Or, you see people, consideration. Exactly. There is a very sad lack. I mean,
Truly.
people cut each other off. People grab stuff out of other people's grocery carts. People start smacking around somebody that doesn't agree with.
Right.
We don't know when to back off.
Right.
Now, and that's going on in the entire world. And that's the biggest shame of, and that's why we have so much bullying and whatnot, is someone, and we have a guy in the White House, I'll say it, we have a guy in the White House that he's bound and determined to show his dominance. He's going to be dominant, and nobody better get in his way. That's not how you govern, but, you know, that's just my thing. I want to thank you so very much for being here, okay? It was good seeing you again, and I hope you come back again sometime real soon.
I will.
Okay?
Thank you for asking.
Thank you for coming. I really appreciate it. Okay? Okay, that's all for today. We will be back the third Friday of next month, and we have a guest. We are trying to get Congressman Danny Davis to come on the show in August, so we will see how that all works out. But please join us next month, same time, same bat station. Well, actually, it's not a bat station, it's CAN TV, which you already know. But we'll see you then, and until then, goodbye.